Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's episode, I'm going to be sharing with you 9 indoor plants that do well in low light conditions. So you might have a dark corner of a room somewhere in your house that you've not been able to put a plant in, thinking that all plants need a lot of bright indirect light. I'm going to share with you 9 plants that might be able to fill that space. So it's important to clarify first that all plants need some form of natural light. It's no good really putting a plant in a room with no windows where it doesn't get any natural light at all. All plants need light to photosynthesize to carry on living. But there are some plants that are less fussy about the lighting requirements and do quite well in low lit conditions. If a plant's not getting enough light, then it just means that it's going to be slower to grow, which might be fine in your circumstances. You might not want to be pruning back your plant every couple of months. The plants that I've chosen are sat around me at the moment. There will be other types of plants available, but these are the ones that I own. If you do think of any plants that do well in low light conditions that I've not mentioned, then please leave it in the comments. I'll be interested to hear that. So the first plant on my list is this one here. This is a devil's ivy, or a golden pothos, as it's sometimes called. So as you can see from this, it's a trailing house plant, and it does quite well in low level conditions. I have mine in a quite dark spot within my dining room. It's on top of a shelf, doesn't get much bright light. It's a couple of meters away from the window. But this one seems quite happy. It's growing quite long stems. So it's a really interesting plant. You can have it draping over your pot like this, or you can have it climbing up a trellis or a moss pole. You'll get bigger leaves if you have it climbing up a moss pole. It's the same with all trailing plants really. It's how they kind of want to grow, and they're similar to their natural environment. So really interesting plants, and definitely one to worth considering buying for a spot in your house that is quite dark. Number 2 on the list is a Dracaena. A Dracaena is this, quite a tall plant. Hopefully I can get it in shot. It's a really interesting plant, quite structural, quite tall. You get variegated forms of this plant, but this one is just a standard Dracaena, and I think that might be why it's quite happy in a darker spot within your house. If you do get a variegated one, then you probably do need to put it in a lighter spot. But this one's grown quite tall. I have it about 3 meters away from my dining room window, so it's in a quite dark location. And it's putting on lots of new growth, quite tall. So it seems really happy. So a good option to have in a dark spot within your house. The next plant on the list, number 3 I believe, is a plant that is very tricky to pronounce, so hopefully I'll get it right. But this one here is a Zami Oculus zanifolia, I believe, or for short a ZZ plant or a ZZ plant. And this is a really nice plant, really popular. You'll be able to find it in most stores, most big box stores, in your local nursery. So it's a really tall structural plant. So you have these long stems growing out of the base of the plant. Really interesting leaves. I like the shape of the leaves. Kind of got this pointy edge to them. This is a really slow growing plant wherever you put it really, whether you put it in a bright spot or a dark spot. So it seems to respond quite well to being put in a lower lit place in your house. Like I have mine. Mine's in my living room, doesn't get much direct light. And also this is fairly easy to propagate. You can do it by stem cutting, taking off a stem and then sticking it in a rooting medium for it to grow roots. Or you can even do leaf cuttings. So you can take a stem off, strip the leaves off, making sure you're getting plenty of the base of the leaf. Put it in a rooting medium, it will eventually grow roots. Really slow to do so, but if you're patient enough, you can multiply the number of ZZ plants you have. So it's a good option for low light level rooms in your house. It doesn't grow very quickly. I've had this for about 2 years and it's still relatively small for the size of it, so a good option to have. The next plant on my list can become quite a tall plant like mine has. So I've got it right here. It's the rubber plant or the Ficus Elastica. This is a non-variegated form. Hopefully you can see it on the camera. This is one of my favourite plants. Really nice, interesting leaves. I like the way it grows. Relatively easy to propagate, can be a little bit fussy. But this one tends to do okay in low lit conditions. Obviously, if you put it in a brighter location, then it will grow a bit quicker and put out more leaves. It grows fine in a lower lit place in your house. Another variation is the Ficus Elastica tineke or rubber plant tineke. So this is a variegated form with these watercolour-like leaves. This one probably wants to be in a bit of a brighter location, so make sure you keep the variegation. I have mine next to my window in my dining room. Gets a lot of light there, but I think it will do okay if you have it a couple of meters away from your window in your house. So number 5 on my list of low lit house plants is this guy at the front. This is Chinese money plant. So this one, I've got this located in my living room on my fireplace mantle. Doesn't get tons of light, but still doing okay. Putting out these little baby plants at the base. You can see that just there. So you can cut those out from the main plant and pop them up, and you'll get eventually a new Chinese money plant. So really easy to propagate, really easy to look after. Don't require that much attention really. They do tend to leave the lower leaves as they grow taller. Nothing to be alarmed about, it's just the way this plant grows. But again, a really fantastic plant for beginners, so well worth adding to your collection if you haven't got it already. Number 6 on the list is a really nice plant. It's called a chefflera or an umbrella plant, and it's this guy here. So I really like this plant. You can see where it gets the name umbrella plants, the shape of the leaves coming from the stem. Really interesting, shaped like umbrellas obviously. So this does well in low light levels. I have this in my hallway. The only light source there is a small window on the door, and this is kind of tucked behind that. So it doesn't get much light at all, and it's quite happy. It's recently, in the last few weeks, put out these, I think 5 new leaves. You can tell they're new because they're lighter green and it grows from the top. So it's happy, it's pushing out new growth. I think you can see on the camera, there's a tiny one there coming through. There's a few tiny ones coming through. So it's going to push out new growth for the next few weeks. So it's really happy. Again, very popular. You'll be able to find this in your local stores, your local nurseries, relatively cheap. This is a variegated version. It's got light green and dark green leaves. You can find versions that just have the dark green leaves. Both of them are fine in darker locations. The next plant on my list is a Monstera Adasona, I believe that's what it's called, and it's this one at the front here, if I can grab it. Really like this. It's almost like a mini Monstera deliciosa. So it's got the fenestration in the leaves. Feature of this plant, as it grows taller, puts these fenestration in the leaves so the lower leaves can get sunlight. So I had this in a very bright location in my dining room, right on my windowsill more or less. And really didn't like it at all. It was getting yellow leaves. I think it was getting too much light. So I brought it back to the back of the room, about 3 meters from the window, 3 or 4 meters from the window. And it's much happier there. The leaves have gone a dark green, which is really nice, and it's pushing out new growth all the time. It's a really fast grower, this plant. You need to water it every once in a while, give it some fertilizer. Don't let direct sun hit it, and it will grow relatively quickly. It's got this nice long stem that's ripe for propagation. I'll do a video on that shortly, probably. So yeah, mini Monstera deliciosa. This is called a Monstera Adasona, I believe it's called. It does fine in lower light levels, as I have it in my house as well. The penultimate plant on my list, at number 8, is a type of Peperomia Raindrop. I'm not sure what the actual kind of Latin name of it is, but this is it here. Really nice plant. I think I got this in IKEA, so it's widely available. Like I said, it's a type of peperomia and it's got these really nice glossy raindrop leaves, where it gets the name from. Have it in quite a dark spot in my house. Grows relatively quick. Probably would grow quicker if it was in a brighter spot, but that's fine. I quite like the compact shape. Don't want it to get too leggy. So it's a really interesting plant. I really like the glossy leaves on it, quite unlike other plants. So it's really interesting. I really like it. It'll do well in a dark spot in your house. So the last plant on my list is the snake plant. So I've got two versions here. Got this kind of non-variegated form. It's just recently put out this fresh new leaf, even though it's in a relatively dark spot in my house. So it's quite happy. And I've got a variegated version here, featured on my channel a couple of times already. But both are in quite a dark spot in my house. Both doing really well. Both really interesting, structural, sculptural kind of plants. They're really, really slow to grow, so it doesn't really matter where you put them. They'll be slow to grow either way, and they're really slow to propagate. I've done a propagation video on this plant. I'll put a link to it in the description. You can check that out. Really easy to care for. It'll do well in a dark spot in your house or in your office somewhere, and you'll be able to find it anywhere. It's a really popular plant, a snake plant. You'll be able to find them absolutely everywhere. IKEA, B&Q, Homebase, all the big box stores. So a good option to have. So there you have it, guys. My list of 9 plants that will do well in low light conditions within your house or even your office, if you have plants in your office or looking to put plants in your office. There's probably going to be loads more that you thought of. If you have, then please leave it in the comments. I'll be interested to know of any other plants that will do well in low light conditions. Might consider purchasing myself. If you like the video, then please leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.